Thanks very much, Jane Wells. Meanwhile, Carly Fiorina made big moves on the corporate stage while at Hewlett-Packard. Now she's looking to make big moves into politics. The former HP chairman and CEO faced some tough battles at the technology powerhouse, and now she's challenging California's longtime Democratic Senator Barbara Boxer for her seat. She joins me now in a CNBC exclusive, the Republican candidate for California's Senate seat, Carly Fiorina. Carly, it's nice to have you on the program.
Great to be back with you.
Welcome back. It's good to see you. So let's talk about what we just heard from Jane Wells. You've got a business background, and you're faced in California with a $20 billion budget deficit, 12.4% unemployment rate.
Yep.
What is it going to take? Can Washington be helpful in terms of helping California?
Well, first, California is kind of a test case of what happens when government gets too big, spending gets too high, regulations get too thick, entitlements get too rich. We start destroying jobs, and that's what we're doing in California. And the reason I'm running for the U.S. Senate is because I think California is a harbinger of things to come if we don't have people in Washington focusing on job creation. A lot of people like Barbara Boxer, I don't think, understand how the private economy works and why jobs are created and how they can be destroyed through too much taxation and too much regulation. Secondly, of course, we really have to get spending under control in Washington, D.C. While Californians are struggling with 12.4% unemployment, they're enraged that federal government employees are growing at 14.5% a year. So we have a spending problem in Sacramento. We have a spending problem in Washington, D.C. We got to get that spending under control, and we have to focus on creating private sector jobs.
You make a lot of good points, because I think certainly business people would like to see some of those changes made across the country.
Yeah.
So in California, what would you be doing that Barbara Boxer has not done? Tell us what specific changes you think need to be made on the spending side, and also taxation. You know, we all look at taxing the banking sector and as the possibility of possibly limiting their ability to create jobs, but we need to make a dent in the deficit.
But one way to make a dent in the deficit, as anyone who's ever run a business or a family knows, is you cut back on spending. And why is it that Washington, D.C. never gets to the point where they're talking about cutting spending? Even this latest financial regulatory reform bill, guess what we're doing? Have we reformed any of the existing agencies that have some degree of control over or oversight over the financial system? No. We've created a brand new one called the Consumer Protection Agency. Have we dealt with Fannie and Freddie? No. They're in conservatorship to the American taxpayer. So we have to actually start talking about cutting spending and reforming government. But also, just as one example, Barbara Boxer is pushing cap and trade, a huge job-killing piece of legislation that will increase energy prices. We know what that will do. In California, we have something called AB 32. It has killed jobs, so much so that there is a bipartisan effort to have that law suspended until unemployment reaches 5%. It is going to be voted on by the voters of California in the November ballot. If that is an admission that legislation can kill jobs, I don't know what is.
Would you have voted for this FinReg that they're deciding on right now in Washington?
No, I would not.
But you're right. I mean, Fannie and Freddie are noticeably absent from this regulation.
Unbelievably absent. And have you ever noticed how every time there's a problem in Washington, the way professional politicians in Washington solve the problem is they create another agency? I mean, Department of Homeland Security, Department of National Intelligence. There was not reform of the underlying agencies. There was the creation of another agency. And that's what we've just done with FinReg. Let's never mind the SEC, never mind all these agencies that were asleep at the switch, apparently. Let's create another one.
Right.
And now they're trying to figure out how to pay for it, and guess what? They can't.
And all of those new agencies require spending.
Absolutely.
How much spending can be cut back, though, realistically? I mean, you know, when you start getting into the bone, meaning the entitlements, is that a far way off, or is there a significant amount of spending to be cut without touching the entitlements?
Well, let's look at it this way. If you have a vast, unaccountable bureaucracy where no one examines the money that's getting spent, and where every year you get more money, almost no matter what, you're going to have a ton of waste and abuse. Anyone who lives in the real world knows that. CNBC knows how to cut back when times get tough. Hewlett-Packard knows how to cut back. Families know how to cut back, but somehow Washington never gets around to it. There have been several nonpartisan studies that suggest there's at least $500 billion worth of waste and inefficiency in the federal government. We haven't reformed federal government in 60 years, and we have become accustomed to a level of incompetence and unaccountability in Washington that, frankly, we wouldn't tolerate anywhere else.
Now, I've got to push back on your record. When we started promoting that you were coming on the show today, we got a lot of emails from viewers, and they said things like, well, you know, Carly is touting her business experience. The experience has been tumultuous. She had faced heavy criticism for the acquisition of Compaq. Whether or not later on that actually turned out to be a positive for the company, the stock was down 50% below when she left from where she was when she started.
Yeah.
So what do you answer critics who may want to think that that's going to impact their vote?
Well, first of all, I managed HP through very tumultuous times. The dot-com bust was the worst technology recession in 25 years. And yes, our stock was down, but our stock outperformed the technology peer index by 23%. And despite those tough times, we doubled the size of the company from $44 billion to $88 billion. We quintupled the cash flow. We improved the profitability in every product line. We tripled the rate of innovation to 11 patents a day. We created market-leading positions in every market in which we competed. And yes, at the time, Compaq was very controversial, but remember also at the time, the conventional wisdom was that AOL Time Warner was the great merger that was going to succeed. That we know how that one turned out. HP Compaq was absolutely the right thing to do, and it was clear long before I left the company.
You know, we have a lot of CEOs coming on this program who say, we talk about Europe a lot, we talk about a fragile economy. What really is hurting this market and hurting this economy are the policies coming out of Washington
Absolutely.
right now. So what specific recommendations do you have on a federal level in terms of actually taking us out of this?
Okay, so let's talk about job creation. We have to do three things. We have to cut very specific taxes. We have to fight for a job by creating the kinds of tools to lure business back that China uses to lure our businesses away, and we need to focus on innovation. Example, we ought to give small business owners a 2-year payroll tax holiday for every unemployed worker they hire. Example, instead of taxing overseas profits, we already have the second highest business tax rate in the world. We're the only country that taxes overseas profits. Let's tell companies that if they will bring some of that cash home and invest it in plant and equipment and jobs here at home, that we will vastly reduce the rate at which those profits are taxed. And third, our R&D tax credit in this country is now 19th in the world. We have to be motivating innovation, incenting innovation, and we're falling way behind in that area. Any one of those things would help create private sector jobs, and we are doing none of them right now.
Carly, good to have you on the program.
Great to be with you.
We'll be watching the campaign going forward in California. Carly Fiorina joining us here at the NYC.